Day 1134 of the Trump administration. Exactly 250 days to go until the 2020 presidential election. Tonight, the spread of the coronavirus is taking a further toll on global markets while adding to the pressure on President Trump. Today, the Dow saw its biggest one-day point decline in history, plunging more than 1,000 points. And tonight, there are indications of potentially more losses to come. The number of reported virus cases worldwide, meanwhile, continues to climb. It is now at more than 82,000. And while the majority of cases are in China, the New York Times reports that coronavirus has now been detected in at least 48 different countries, with case numbers rising rapidly in Italy, Iran, and South Korea. Today, the Centers for Disease Control expanded federal guidelines to include people with symptoms who have recently traveled to those countries, as well as to China and to Japan. And Japan has decided to shut down all schools for about a month. This in an effort to help contain its coronavirus outbreak. As for the United States, the New York Times reports there are now 60 known cases. One is in Northern California, and it is being closely watched. This appears to be the first case involving a patient who had not recently traveled outside of the country and who was not in contact with someone who did. The Trump administration continues to hear criticism over its response to the virus. Last night, the president declared that Vice President Mike Pence would take charge of the coronavirus task force. Tonight, Trump was back in front of the cameras himself.
We have a situation with the virus. We've done a great job. The press won't give us credit for it. I think it's an incredible achievement that our country's done. We're giving whatever other countries need. We're helping them, but we have to run our country too. A lot of people say, why isn't he in China? Well, China has to want that, and other places have. But they're running it, and they're working very hard, I will tell you, and we're in very constant communication. If we were doing a bad job, we should also be criticized. But we have done an incredible job. We're going to continue. It's going to disappear. One day it could get worse before it gets better. It could maybe go away. We'll see what happens. Nobody really knows.
The Washington Post's Philip Rucker, who joins us in a moment, is reporting on the challenges this potential health emergency poses for this president and his administration. Quote, Trump finds himself grappling with a crisis for which his record suggests he is particularly ill-suited to respond. At a time when expertise is paramount, Trump has hollowed out the government agencies responsible for the tasks at hand. The Post also broke the story, now confirmed by several outlets, of a new whistleblower complaint. According to reports, the Department of Health and Human Services sent more than a dozen workers to greet Americans evacuated from the center of the outbreak in China, and that they were there without proper training or infection control protection. The federal employees were, quote, sent to March Air Force Base in Riverside County, California, and Travis Air Force Base in Solano County, California. It is reported the aforementioned California patient who mysteriously contracted the virus is from Solano County. During a hearing on Capitol Hill today, Health Secretary Alex Azar was asked about the whistleblower's allegation.
To your knowledge, were any of the ACF employees exposed to high-risk evacuees from China?
They should never have been without appropriate PPE.
What's PPE?
That's personal protective equipment.
Are you aware? It is my understanding that, there was a team, as you just confirmed, that was sent to the March and Travis Air Force bases, and there was it was kind of chaotic on the ground. To your knowledge, were protocols followed at all times?
I would not accept your proposition that chaotic at all times. I would want to get a report from my team. I'm not aware of any violation of quarantine or isolation protocols.
Back at HHS headquarters today, Vice President Pence headed up his first coronavirus task force meeting. And shortly before that session, the New York Times reported that senior administration officials will now have to check with Pence before they can make public statements about the epidemic. Pence has also named AIDS HIV expert Ambassador Debbie Birx, who's also a physician, to the White House's coronavirus response coordinator. She joins the vice president and health secretary Azar on the front lines of the administration's response to the virus. Today, lawmakers seemed a bit confused over exactly who is now calling the shots.
With the leadership going forward, in Vice President Pence What's the interface going to be with yourself, Mr. Secretary, between the two of you? Who's going to do what, and how do you see that working in terms of the task force?
Yep. So it'll a lot of continuity with what we've already been doing. I will remain the chairman of the task force, the interagency task force.
And then we heard this from the vice president.
I'm leading the task force. We'll continue to rely on the Secretary's role as chairman of the task force and the leader of Health and Human Services. But we've known each other for many years and worked together very closely over the years, and the President has every confidence in the Secretary, as I do.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.